Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I am here to bring you a battle between the 5 Guilds of Ravnica guild kits. Each deck is decorated in its colors and we will be playing a free-for-all. The last deck standing is the winner. We'll go ahead and get started by rolling 2 dice each to see who goes first. Selesnya rolls a 10. Izzet rolls a 9. Dimir rolls a 4. Boros rolls a 3. Golgari rolls a 10. We'll roll off between Golgari and Selesnya. Golgari rolls an 8. Selesnya rolls a 7. Golgari will go first. We'll all draw 7 cards, and we'll draw an additional card at the beginning of the first turn because this is multiplayer. Golgari draws a Golgari Rot Farm, Forest, Swamp, Karasta Guild Mage, Loyalist Troll, Elves of the Deep Shadow, and Golgari Rot Farm. I think this is a fine first hand. Selesnya draws a Forest, Scatter the Seeds, Selesnya Sanctuary, Plains, Forest, Vernaldi Shieldmate, and Glare of the Subdual. This is a little bit of a slow hand, but we do have some options here, so we will keep this. Izzet draws Izzet Boilerworks, Radical Idea, Goblin Electromancer, Firemine Research, Izzet Guildgate, Goblin Rally, and Char. I think we're a little short on lands here. But because we have the Radical Idea, I think we will keep this hand. Dimir draws Telling Time, Ribbons of the Night, Syncopate, Lazov Dimir Mastermind, Island, Barrier Bones, and Call of the Nightwing. Only one land, and that is a no-go. We'll shift this back. Dimir draws a Dimir Guild Mage, Consuming Aberration, Discovery Dispersal, Night Veil Spectre, Dimir Guildgate, Zazdak, Lord of Secrets, and Dimir Doppelganger. Still only have one land, so we'll use up our free mulligan and we'll go down to 7. Now we draw a Dimir Signet, Glimpse the Unthinkable, Mephitic Vapors, Dimir Guildmage, Swamp, Etrata the Silencer, and Island. I think we're going to keep this, and we'll take Glimpse the Unthinkable and stick it on the bottom. Boros draws a Lightning Helix, Bomber Core, Boros Signet, Fireman Angel, Boros Signet, Spark Trooper, and Boros Elite. 0 lands is no keeper. We'll return this. Now we have a Legion Loyalist, Plains, Frenzied Goblin, Boros Garrison, Boros Charm, and Boros Swiftblade. This is a keeper. Turn 1, Golgari will play a Forest. They'll tap that Forest and play Elves of the Deep Shadow. This is a 1/1 Elf Druid, and you can tap it to add black. Elves of the Deep Shadow deals 1 damage to you. We forgot to draw, so we'll draw a card. It's a Golgari Rot Farm. Now we have a bunch of those. Selesnya draws, gets a Siege Worm. We'll play a Plains, and then Selesnya will pass the turn. Izzet draws, gets a Mountain. We will play the Izzet Guildgate. It'll enter the battlefield tapped, and then Izzet will pass the turn. Dimir will draw and Dimir Aqueduct, and then we will play a Island, and then Dimir will pass the turn. Boros will draw. They get a Boros Garrison. They will play a Plains, and then Boros will pass the turn. Golgari untaps. Golgari draws, gets a Swamp. We will play the Swamp. We will tap both the Swamp and the Forest, and we will play the Loyalist Troll. This is a 2/1 zombie troll with trample. You can discard a creature card to put a +1/+1 counter on Loyalist Troll, and for black you can regenerate Loyalist Troll. And then Golgari will pass a turn. Selesnya will draw. They'll get an Advent of the Worm. They will play a Forest. They'll tap the Plains in the Forest and play the Vernaldi Shieldmate. It is a 2/2 human soldier with Vigilance, and then Selesnya will pass the turn. Izzet will untap. Izzet will draw. They get a Tibor and Lumia, and then Izzet will play a Mountain, and they will tap both the Izzet Guildgate and the Mountain, and they'll play a Firemine Research. This is an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on Firemine Research. For 1 in a blue, remove 2 charge counters from Firemine Research to draw a card, and for 1 in a red, remove 5 counters from Firemine Research, and it deals 5 damage to any target. Then Izzet will pass a turn. Dimir will draw. They draw a Neitherborn Phalanx, and then Dimir will play a Swamp. We'll tap both the Swamp and the Island to play Dimir Signet. This is an artifact. You can pay 1, tap it to add blue and black. and then Dimir will pass the turn. Boros draws, gets a Master Warcraft. Boros will play the Plains, and then Boros will pass the turn. Golgari untaps. Golgari draws, gets a Savra, Queen of the Golgari. Golgari will play both the Swamp and the Forest to play the Karasi Guild Mage. This is a 2/2 Elf Shaman. For 1 black-green, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains Intimidate till end of turn. And for 2 black-green, sacrifice a non-token creature, create X 1/1 green sapperling creature tokens where X is a sacrificed creature's toughness. Then we will play the Golgari Rot Farm. It enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, return a land you control to its owner's hand. We'll return the swamp to our hand. And then you can tap it for black and green. Then Golgari will attack Boros with the Loyalist Troll, and will attack Dimir with the Elves of the Deep Shadow. Boros can't block, they'll take 2 and go down to 18. Dimir can't block, they'll take 1 and go down to 19. Then Golgari will pass the turn. Selesnya untaps, Selesnya draws, gets a Selesnya Signet. Then Selesnya will tap both the Plains and the Forest and play the Selesnya Signet. It is an artifact. You can pay 1 tap to add green and white. And then Selesnya will play the Selesnya Sanctuary. It enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, return the land we control to our hand, and we will return the Plains to our hand. And then you can tap it to add green and white. And then we will go attacking. We will attack Izzet with the Vernality Shieldmate. Izzet takes 2 and goes to 18. Then Selesnya passes the turn. It's Izzet's turn. Izzet will untap. Izzet will draw. They get an island. Izzet will tap both of these for blue and red. They'll play the Goblin Electromancer. This is a 2/2 Goblin Wizard, and instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And then we will play the Izzet Boilerworks. It enters the battlefield tapped. We'll return a land to our hand. We'll choose the mountain, and then we can tap it for 2 mana in the future. Then Izzet passes the turn. Dimir untaps. Dimir draws, gets a Night Veil Predator. Dimir will tap the black to tap the Dimir Signet to get a black and a blue mana. And then we will play the Dimir Guild Mage. This is a 2/2 Human Wizard, and for 3 and a blue, target player draws a card. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. And for 3 and a black, target player discards a card. You can activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. And then we'll play the Dimir Aqueduct. This will enter the battlefield tapped. We'll pick up the Swamp back into our hand, and then you can tap it to add blue and black. And then Dimir will pass the turn. Boros draws. Boros gets a Sunhome Guild Mage. Boros was hoping to draw a white card, but that's not going to be the case. We will just play one of the Boros Garrisons. It'll enter the battlefield tapped. We'll return the Plains to our hand, and then we'll discard a card. And we'll discard 1 card, which will be the Frenzied Goblin. And then Boros will pass the turn. Golgari untaps. Golgari draws, gets a Forest. Golgari will tap everything, lose 1 life from the Elves of the Deep Shadow to go to 19, and we'll play Savra, Queen of the Golgari. She is a 2/2 Legendary Elf Shaman. Whenever you sacrifice a black creature, you may pay 2 life. If you do, each other player sacrifices a creature. And whenever you sacrifice a green creature, you may gain 2 life. And then we'll play a Golgari Rot Farm. It enters the battlefield tapped. We'll bounce the Forest back to our hand. And then we will attack. Loyalist Troll will attack into Boros. Boros takes 2 and goes to 16. Golgari will pass the turn. Selesnya untaps. Selesnya draws, gets a Centaur Healer. Selesnya will tap the Forest to tap the Selesnya Signet for white and green. We'll tap the Selesnya Sanctuary for white and green. And with this mana, we'll actually play the Glare of Subdual. This is a enchantment. You can tap an untapped creature you control to tap target artifact or creature. And then we'll go on the attack, and we will attack Boros with the Vernality Shieldmate. Boros takes 2 and goes to 14. Then we will play a Plains, and Selesnya will pass the turn. Izzet untaps. Izzet draws, gets a island. Izzet will play the island. Izzet will attack Boros with the Goblin Electromancer. Boros takes the hit and goes to 12. Izzet spends 4 mana, and then plays Tibor and Lumia. This is a 3/3 Legendary Human Wizard. Whenever you cast a blue spell, target creature gains flying until end of turn. Whenever you cast a red spell, Tibor and Lumia deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. Then Izzet will pass the turn. Dimir will untap. Dimir will draw. They get a Price of Fame. Dimir will play the Swamp. And then Dimir will tap the Dimir Aqueduct and then spend the blue mana to play the Dimir Signet. And then we'll pay 1 black mana to get to 4 mana to play Atrada the Silencer. This is a 3/5 legendary vampire assassin. Atrada the Silencer can't be blocked. Whenever Atrada deals combat damage to a player, exile target creature that player controls and put a hit counter on that card. That player loses the game if they own 3 or more exiled cards with hit counters on them. Atrada's owner shuffles Atrada into their library. And then Dimir will pass the turn. Boros untaps. Boros draws, gets the plains. Boros will tap the Boros Garrison and then play a Boros Swiftblade. This is a 1/2 human soldier with double strike. Then Boros will play a plains, and then Boros will pass the turn. Golgari untaps. Golgari draws, gets a status statue. Golgari will play a swamp. Golgari will then pass the turn. Selesnya untaps. Selesnya draws, gets a Tolsimir Wolfblood. Selesnya will play a forest. Selesnya will pass the turn. Izzet untaps. Izzet draws, gets a mountain. Izzet will play a mountain. And then Izzet will tap 1 island to cast Radical Idea. This says draw a card and has Jumpstart. We'll draw a card, and that is a Crackling Drake. Then Tibor and Lumia will trigger, and that will give the Goblin Electromancer flying, and then we will attack Dimir with the Goblin Electromancer for 2. We'll also put a counter on the Firemind Research. Dimir has no response, we'll take 2 and go to 17. Then Izzet will pass the turn. Dimir untaps. Dimir draws. They get a last gasp. Then Dimir will attack Izzet with Atrada the Silencer. Izzet will respond by tapping 2 and playing Char. It's an instant. It deals 4 damage to any target and 2 damage to you. We'll target Atrada the Silencer. We'll take 2 damage and go to 17. And then Tibor and Lumia will trigger, dealing an additional damage to that. And every creature that is not flying, Atrada dies. This will also kill Elves of the Deep Shadow. And then Golgari will tap the Swamp to regenerate the Lotless Troll, so it will survive. We will tap the Swamp to tap the Dimir Signet, and then we'll tap the Dimir Aqueduct for blue, black, and we'll play Nightveil Predator. This is a 3/3 flying Death Touch with Hexproof, and then Dimir will pass the turn. Boros untaps, Boros draws, gets a Boros Signet. Boros will tap both planes to play the Boros Signet. This is a artifact, and you can pay 1, tap it to add red and white. Then we will tap the Boros Garrison and use the white mana of the Boros Garrison to tap the Boros Signets. We have red, white. We will play the Legion Loyalist, which is a 1/1 Goblin Soldier with haste. And whenever Legion Loyalist attacks, and at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control gain first strike and trample until end of turn, and can't be blocked by creature tokens this turn. We'll also play the Sunhome Guildmage, which is a 2/2 human wizard, and for 1 red white, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. And for 2 red white, you can create a 1/1 red and white soldier creature token with haste. And then we'll play the Boros Garrison. We'll pick up the planes. And then Boros will pass the turn. Golgari untaps. Golgari draws, gets a Hatchery Spider. We will play a Forest. And there are no good attacks on the board, so Golgari will pass the turn. At the end of Golgari's turn, we will tap 5 mana and play Scatter the Seeds. This is an instant, and it says create 3 1/1 green sapling creature tokens. There are our saplings, and then we will untap. We'll draw. We get a Pollenbright Wings. Then we will pay 1 plains to turn the Selesnya Signet, and we'll tap the rest for a total of 6 mana. We'll play Tolsimir Wolfblood. This is a 3/4 Legendary Elf Warrior. Other green creatures you control get +1/+1. Other white creatures you control get +1/+1. This makes all the saplings 2/2s and the Vernati Shieldmate as a both white and green creature a 4/4 with vigilance. And then you can tap it to create a 2/2 white wolf creature token named Boja. We'll tap one of the saplings to tap down Tibor and Lumia. That taps Tibor and Lumia. And then we will attack Izzet with the 4/4 Vernati Shieldmate. Izzet cannot block, will take 4 and go down to 13. Then Izzet will pass the turn. Izzet untaps. Izzet draws, gets an island. Izzet will play a mountain. And then Izzet will spend a blue and cast Radical Idea, discarding an island. And that'll let us draw a card. That will be an Izzet Boilerworks. This will give the Goblin Electromancer flying, and then we will attack the Goblin Electromancer into Selesnya. Selesnya can't block, will take 2 and go to 18. Then Izzet will play the Izzet Boilerworks and pick up the island. And Izzet will spend, this exiles the Radical Idea. And then Izzet will spend 4 mana to play the Crackling Drake. This is a 3/4 Drake with flying, and its power is equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. That's 2 right now. And when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. We'll draw a Beacon Bolt, and then, oh, we can't play the Boilerworks because we just played the mountain. We'll just pick up this mountain like we didn't play it. We shouldn't forget to put a counter on the Firemine Research for casting Radical Idea again, and then Izzet will pass the turn. Dimir untaps. Dimir draws, gets a Ribbons of the Night. Dimir will tap the island into the Dimir Signet for blue-black, the Aqueduct for blue-black, and the Swamp. We'll target Tolsimir Wolfblood with Last Gasp. It's an instant. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn, making it a 0/1. And then we'll cast Mephitic Vapors, and all creatures will get -1/-1 until end of turn. This kills Tolsimir, and then that will make all the power and toughness even here again, and those -1/-1 will also kill the 3 Saprolings. In response, we'll use the Glare of Subdual to tap Tolsimir and all the Saprolings before they die. And we will tap down Tibor and Lumia, the Crackling Drake, the Dimir Guild Mage, and the Boros Swiftblade. Tibor, Lumia, and Crackling Drake are tapped. Guild Mage is tapped. Legion Loyalist dies, and the Swiftblade is tapped. The -1/-1 will kill the Lotleth Troll as well. We will actually tap to sacrifice the Lotleth Troll. We'll create 1/1/1, which will also die to the trigger, but that will cause Savra to trigger, and we can pay 2 life. We'll pay 2 life to go to 17, and each other player will sacrifice a creature. Boros will sacrifice the Swiftblade. Selesnya will tap the Vernati Shieldmate to tap down the Kurazda Guildmage before it dies. Kurazda Guildmage is tapped. Izzet will sacrifice the Electromancer. Dimir sacrifices the Guildmage, and then Dimir will pass the turn. Boros untaps. Boros draws, gets a mountain. We're flooding. We'll play the plains, and then we'll pass the turn. Golgari untaps. Golgari draws, gets a Golgari Signet. We're also flooding here. We will play a forest, and then we will tap all 7 mana and play the Hatchery Spider. This is a 5/7 spider with reach. When you cast a spell, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. You may put a green permanent card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. We have 2 creatures in here, so we'll reveal 2 cards. None of them have the converted mana cost X or less, so we whiffed. We'll put this on the bottom. And then we'll attack Izzet with Savra and Selesnya with the Kurazda Guildmage for a total of 2 damage each. Selesnya takes 2 and goes to 16. Izzet takes 2 and goes to 11. Then Golgari will pass the turn. Selesnya untaps. Selesnya draws, gets a Watchwolf. Selesnya will tap the plains, tap the Signet, and then we'll play the Watchwolf, which is a 3/3 wolf, and then Selesnya will pass the turn. Izzet untaps. Izzet draws, gets an island. will play the island. We'll spend 5 mana and cast Goblin Rally. This is a sorcery, creates 4 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. This will trigger the Firemind's research to go to 3. We'll create 4 goblin tokens. As we cast the spell, it will deal 1 damage to each creature, and then the tokens will enter the battlefield. The Crackling Drake is a 3/4, so we will attack Selesnya with the Crackling Drake for 3. Selesnya can't block the flyer, so they'll take 3 and go to 13. And then Izzet will pass the turn. Dimir untaps. Dimir draws, gets an island. We'll play the island. We'll tap the island for the signet, the aqueduct, the island, and the swamp for a total of 6 mana. And we will play the Neitherborn Phalanx. It is a 2/4 horror. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life for each creature they control. Boros goes to 11. Golgari will go to 14. Selesnya will go to 12. Izzet takes 6 and goes to 5. Dimir will attack Izzet with the Nightveil Predator for 3. Izzet goes to 2. Then Dimir will pass the turn. At the end of Dimir's turn, Boros will tap both guild gates and produce a 1/1 creature token. Boros untaps. Boros draws, gets a Boros Signet. Boros will play a mountain, and then Boros will pass the turn. Golgari untaps. Golgari draws, gets a Golgari Guildgate. Golgari will tap 2 mana and then play the Golgari Signet. Like the other Signets, it's 1 tap, add black-green. And then we'll play the Golgari Rot Farm, picking up a forest, and Golgari will pass the turn. At the end of Golgari's turn, we will tap out the Sanctuary and the forests and play Advent of the Worm. It's an instant, create a 5/5 green worm creature token with trample. There's our worm. And then we will use the Watch Wolf to tap down the Netherborn Phalanx, and we'll also use the worm to tap down the Hatchery Spider, and then we'll untap. We'll draw. We get a Selesnya Guildgate. We'll play the Selesnya Guildgate tapped. The Phalanx is tapped. We will attack Dimir with the worm. Dimir will take 5 damage and go to 12. Then we'll tap out and also tap the Watchwolf for Convoke to play the Siege Worm, which is a 5/5 worm with Convoke and Trample. And then Selesnya will pass the turn. At the end of Selesnya's turn, Izzet will tap these 2 and remove 2 counters to draw a card. We draw an Electrickery. Izzet will untap. Izzet will draw. They get a Chemister's Insight. Izzet will play a island, and then Izzet will pass the turn. Dimir untaps. Dimir draws, gets a swamp. Dimir will play the swamp, and Dimir will pass the turn. At the end of Dimir's turn, Boros will tap out and create 2 more soldier tokens. Then Boros untaps. Boros draws, gets another mountain, continues the flood. We will play the mountain. We'll tap the mountain to play another Boros Signet, and then Boros will pass the turn. Golgari untaps. Golgari draws, gets a forest. We continue to flood here as well. We will play the Golgari Guildgate tapped. Then we will tap 3 mana to activate Khorazda Guildmage's first ability to give Savra, Queen of the Golgari, +1/+1 and Intimidate, and then we will send Savra at Izzet as a 3/3 Intimidating. Izzet can't block, so Izzet is going to cast Chemister's Insight. It's an instant that says draw 2 cards and jumpstart. We'll draw 2 cards. We drew an Electrostatic Field and into the Firemind. This will not help. It's a 3/3. This will put a counter on the Firemind's Research. We'll tap 2 more mana to remove these counters and draw a card. We get a mountain. Seeing that we're going to die, we're going to go out with a splash. We'll tap the Izzet Guildgate and the mountain to cast Electrickery, overloading it, and that will deal 1 damage to each creature we don't control. And then Tibor and Lumia will deal 1 damage to each creature without flying. This will kill all the goblins. and each creature will take 2. Boros will tap a Plains and tap a Boros Signet to cast Boros Charm, and we can choose one. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player or Planeswalker. Nope. Permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn. That's what we'll do. So Boros' creatures will survive. This deals 2 damage to the Karazda Guild Mage. So the Guild Mage will sacrifice itself, which will create 2 creature tokens which will get killed by the damage there. But while sacrificing itself, we will pay 2 life to go down to 12, and then each player must sacrifice a creature. Celestia will sacrifice the Watchwolf. Izzet will sacrifice Tibor and Lumia. Dimir will sacrifice the Netherborn Phalanx. Boros will sacrifice a soldier. Then Izzet, unable to block, will die. Then Golgari will pass the turn. At the end of Golgari's turn, Selesnya will tap the Siege Worm to tap down the Hatchery Spider. And then Selesnya will untap. Selesnya will draw and get a Selesnya Evangel. Selesnya will attack Golgari with one of the worms. Golgari can only take it and go down to 7. Then Selesnya will tap 1 to tap this, and then add this to play the Centaur Healer. It's a 3/3 Centaur Cleric, and when it enters the battlefield, we'll gain 3 life. We'll go up to 15. And then we'll tap the Selesnya Sanctuary to play the Selesnya Evangel. This is a 1/2 Elf Shaman, and you can tap an untapped creature you control to create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. And then Selesnya will pass the turn. At the end of Selesnya's turn, Dimir will tap 4 and play a Price of Fame, targeting the untapped Siege Worm, and it's an instant. It says destroy target creature, surveil 2. Dimir will tap the Siege Worm to tap down the Sunholm Guild Mage before it dies. The Guild Mage goes tapped, and then Dimir will untap. Dimir will draw. They get a swamp. They'll play the swamp. They'll spend 5 mana and play Ribbons of the Night. It's a sorcery, deals 4 damage to target creature and you gain 4 life. We'll target the Centaur Healer and we'll gain 4 life to go up to 16. Selesnya will tap the Healer to tap down a soldier token before it dies. Soldier token gets tapped, and then Dimir will pass the turn. At the end of Dimir's turn, we will tap the 2 Boros Garrisons to generate another soldier token. We'll untap. We'll draw. Boros gets a Legion Warboss. Boros will play the last Plains. We'll spend 3 mana to play the Legion Warboss. This is a 2/2 Goblin Soldier with Mentor. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 Goblin creature token. That token gains haste until end of turn and attacks this combat if able. We'll generate a Goblin. The Goblin will attack into Golgari. Golgari can't block, will take 1 and go to 6. Then Boros will pass the turn. Golgari untaps. Golgari draws, gets a Treasured Find. Golgari will play a Swamp. Golgari will tap a Rot Farm, and then Golgari will cast Treasured Find. It says return target card from your graveyard to your hand and exile Treasured Find. We'll return the Karazda Guild Mage to our hand, and then we'll exile Treasure Find. We'll tap another Rot Farm to play the Karazda Guild Mage, and then Golgari will pass the turn. At the end of the turn, Selesnya will tap the Selesnya Evangel to tap down the Hatchery Spider, and then we'll untap. We'll draw. We get a Selesnya Guildgate. We'll play the Guildgate tapped. We might as well do this, so we will tap 6 mana and play Pollen Bright Wings. It is an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature has flying, and whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green sapling creatures. We'll put it on the worm with trample, and then we will attack Golgari with the trampling worm. Golgari will tap 4 and play Statue, targeting the worm, destroy target creature, artifact, or enchantment. The worm dies. That causes the Pollen Bright Wings to fall off, and then Selesnya will pass the turn. Dimir untaps. Dimir draws, gets a Stolen Identity. Dimir will play for 6 mana the Stolen Identity, create a token that's a copy of a target creature artifact, and then it ciphers. we will create a token copy of the Nightveil Predator. Cipher says then you can exile this spell encoded on a creature control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost. And we'll cipher the Nightveil Predator. And then Dimir will attack Boros with the flyer. Boros will take 3 and go to 8. This will create a copy of the Nightveil Predator. Now it has 2. And then we'll pass the turn to Boros. Boros will tap 8 and create another soldier token. Boros will untap. Boros will draw. We'll get a Sky Knight Legionnaire. Boros will cast Master Warcraft. And it's an instant. It says cast the spell only before attackers are declared. You choose which creatures attack this turn. And then you choose which creatures block this turn and how those creatures block. Then we'll go to combat. We'll get another Goblin creature token. And then we will tap 6 mana to pump all the creatures twice. So they all are 3/1s. The Sunhome Guildmage is a 4/2. The Legion Warboss is a 4/2. And then we will attack 2 soldiers into Golgari. We'll attack 2 soldiers, 2 goblins, and the Legion Warboss into Dimir. And we'll also attack Selesnya with the Sunhome Guildmage. The Legion Warboss putting a counter on the soldier token. And then Boros will have Dimir and Golgari block nothing. And we'll have the Evangel block the Sunhome Guildmage. Golgari will take 6 damage and die. Dimir will take 18 damage and die. Dimir takes 18 damage and dies. Golgari takes 6 damage and dies. Selesnya blocks the Sunhome Guildmage with the Evangel and loses the Evangel. And then Boros will pass the turn. Selesnya untaps. And we'll need a Wrath to get out of this one. We get a Selesnya Evangel. We'll tap and we'll play the Selesnya Evangel. And then we'll pass to Boros. Boros untaps. Boros draws. Gets a Hammer Dropper. Boros will spend 3 mana and play the Sky Knight Legionnaire. This is a 2/2 human knight with flying and haste. We'll go to combat and we will attack Selesnya with the whole team, getting another goblin that's tapped and attacking. The Mentor will trigger and we'll put another counter on, say, this soldier here, and the Legionnaire will also attack. And then we will pump everybody twice so that they're all +2/+0. Selesnya will block the Legion Warboss and take a gigantic pile of damage and die. The Boros Legion wins. Let me know what your thoughts were about this game in the comments below. I know that I probably made some mistakes in terms of rules. If you catch anything that I don't catch, please let me know so that everybody will understand what went wrong. If you enjoyed this video, hit like. If you'd like to see more of these, you can hit subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.